Hello, hello. This is a new series of interviews with Culture Crafters Consultant. Culture Crafters was created with a bunch of my colleagues and women and amazing experts in culture to help organizations create a more effective, more human-centered, more agile organizations. One of the questions I get asked all the time is like, but how do you create a culture and where do you even start? We speak with a lot of, and our clients range right from construction companies to banks to tech companies and startups. So today, the first of the interviews will be with Svetlana Saitsky. Hey, she's a really good friend. She's a colleague. We did leadership together. She's someone who told me she actually started this whole culture movement with Zappo and working with them before culture was even a thing. So just to define the way we see culture, I'm going to speak for myself. The way we see here at Culture Crafters, culture is really a set of individual behaviors. I could say like, here's how we do things around here. This is how we make decisions. This is how we spend our time. This is how we do performance reviews. Svetlana has a really cool perspective. She was an employee of world-known top world companies, and she also coaches and does training with leaders of top companies now. So Svet, do you want to speak a little bit about what makes your perspective so unique?
Yes, and thank you. I love your energy. Roar! Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think what makes my perspective so unique is that I lost count at this point, but I think it's 30 that I've worked for 30 different corporations. I've had a lot of jobs and I'm 35. So
I like variety in her personal life and professional.
I do. Variety is definitely one of my values. So I do like to have many experiences, but more, I was actually looking for a great fit. I wanted to feel good at work and I kept not finding it and I kept moving, but along the way, I kept learning and seeing what are companies doing? What are they doing well? And what are they doing horribly? And I consider myself like a corporate psychology researcher of positive psychology. Like I was always so curious about, wow, what is this company doing for culture? And, again, this was back in the day. So when I started collaborating with Tony Hsieh and Zappos and Delivering Happiness, that was, I believe, in about 2011 or 12 was when I first moved to California. The conversation around culture was not happening until the book Delivering Happiness came out, and suddenly everyone was talking about it. I'd been talking about it for years, but no one was paying attention to me because I didn't make $1 billion. Comes along Tony Hsieh, makes $1 billion with Zappos and starts talking about culture, how like happy employees actually are good for business. Who would have thought, right? Yeah. So I was so fascinated with this concept that I literally emailed him one day just to be like, yo, you're awesome. I think what you're doing is amazing. Zappos was in Vegas at the time. I was in San Francisco. So I even said in my email, I don't know if you're ever going to get this email, and I'm not even trying to work for you. I'm just like giving you a high five. But his assistant at the time got the email, replied to me. She's one of my best friends now. And I ended up working for Delivering Happiness, the company that they launched based on the book. So my job was to basically grow the business development of this company that was teaching businesses how to build culture. So I kind of came in at the very beginning because of an email that I sent, because again, my view has always been, if you want something, go for it. You never know who's gonna respond. And that was fascinating because even at Delivering Happiness, I was not happy. And that was shocking too. I was at Google at the time. Ironically, I'm working at the greatest place to work in the world. And I was really interested in Google. Everyone wanted to work at Google, but I wanted to work at Delivering Happiness. And I literally remember being on the lawn at Google in Mountain View in one of like the bazillion beautiful buildings. And I was like on the phone with my former then or future boss, James. And I was like, James, everyone wants to be at Google, but I want to be at delivering happiness. And I ended up doing that. And then after I left, I actually ended up going back to Google a few years later. But so I've just been in this world for a really long time. I've been fascinated with it. And I've seen so many companies do so many things, and unfortunately not very well. And I think there's just, ping pong tables and food is helpful, but that's not really what builds culture ultimately at the end of the day. So it's a really interesting space to see in the Bay Area, especially because a lot of companies have a lot of money and a lot of, I think, good desire to do well. Even it's just actually convoluted. Like building a culture is not an easy thing to do, especially when a company grows.
Yeah. And that's what I also find, right, with a lot of our clients. They bring us in, we say, okay, we're like the culture crafters, leadership development and training on demand. So we do work with companies who, let's say, went from 50 employees to 100 to 150, but they don't have their own HR. And yes, I agree with you. I always say, like, you can actually consciously design a culture, or a culture will design itself. Right? Like the culture will just design itself if you're not participating. I love what you said. Culture is why people join companies. Like when you email the guy, right? And it really resonates with me. I want to be one of those companies. Is like, I just want to be around you. And that's how I feel when you and I work together and design together. I just want to be in your space. I want to be around you, right? And that's why also people quit. They also quit because of culture. So we're going to dive into two questions. One is, in your opinion, in your experience, what creates inclusive, diverse, highly effective, human-centered culture where leaders actually care about their people, right? Agile. And then the second question after that, we'll talk about like what actually contributes and creates toxic cultures.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. All right. Well, first, let's talk about the upside, right? Like what creates a great culture. And again, I think this is it's a big topic because it's like for every human being, right? What creates an amazing human? So many things. A company is just like an organism made of many people. The best analogy of this I've ever heard was, imagine you're having a party, right? You have 5 people at the party. There's a vibe. Every person who enters the party then changes the vibe. So suddenly when the party is 15 people, different vibe, 25 people, different vibe. It keeps growing, growing, growing. So I think that what I'm noticing is a lot of companies, everyone's talking about culture. We have this culture. We want you to fit into our culture, but really you are about to help transform our culture. So yes, there needs to be a sense of like a culture that's there, but there needs to be a willingness and an open-mindedness enough to allow the new people to also transform the culture as it remains, right? Because just trying to squeeze everyone into what already exists is actually not going to serve people. It's not going to help them truly be themselves. Sometimes it's cool when a new vibe appears. You're like, oh, okay, cool. Like, how is this going to blend, and does it blend? Because the other thing, and I love that you bring this up because this is huge. A lot of people hire based on culture, but they don't fire based on culture, and they need to. It's the same thing. If someone truly is not an energetic match for a team, just like at a party, it'll completely ruin and suck the vibe and the energy.
Yeah.
That matters. So it's hard too to fire people in general. I was a recruiter for many years too. I had to fire people. That was really difficult. A lot of people also don't fire people with integrity.
Yeah.
And that
And I think what you're speaking to also, I agree when it comes to the team, right? And we talked about an organism. It's almost like every team will have its own culture. It's like a microculture, right, on a team. And what you're bringing in, with fitting in and versus like assimilation, right? It's like, here's the culture, you need to assimilate and then you can be one of us. Versus, right, when we talk about inclusion and diversity, it's like, how do we invite people and create this, like, here's how we do things. And it's like, how do you see the world? What is your lens? What is your perspective? And still have enough space, as you said, to continuously transform and better the culture. Because every person who comes to the party, like, we didn't even know this song existed before they came, or this dish, or I've never tried this wine, or like, oh my God, tell me about what you do, right? It's like seeing that. So what, let's
Mhm.
talk about like maybe, I don't know, 3, 5 elements that come to mind being an internal employee and coaching leaders that really contribute to creating positive, awesome, kind, productive culture.
Mhm. Well, I'd say the first thing, just coming from my recent experience with one particular client, is starting as early as possible in your journey to have professional development and like coaching as part of your experience. Like the sooner you can teach people to actually look inward and get to know themselves a bit better, the better. Because again, like a human being, the more conscious we become, the more it'll set us up for success in everything that we do.
Yeah.
And so many breakdowns in companies are bad communication. Like they just are. It's really hard to communicate. We get stressed, we get triggered. Work is tough. I mean, even with the last year, like what everyone's been going through,
Mhm.
we need to remember to be human. Human beings are working at companies. And I think often we're forgetting that and we're not empowering people to actually first be good within themselves. So I think that is huge. Like for a company to actually invest in some sort of, I don't know if it's for some people, it's like an education budget where they can maybe enhance their own skills, but like actual doing group work with teams
Yeah.
to collaborate and to like what we did with leadership. I honestly
Yeah.
feel like that is so important within an
Imagine
organization.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
creating those days for every team in the company to have their own vision, their own set of values, their own agreements, their own ways of like doing things and making decisions. Like, yeah, I agree. That would be amazing.
Yeah, huge. Also, you know, a space for psychological safety, right? That's been a huge conversation in the last, I'd say, 5 years. I've been hearing a lot about psychological safety. Psychological safety, when I say that, I just mean, you know, the idea that like you can go to your manager and actually say, hey, I'm confused. I can't tell you how many high level, brilliant people I coach who are terrified to tell their boss that they don't know because their boss hasn't created an intimate space where someone can be honest about the fact that they're confused or they're lost. Like the best people are lost and confused because they're usually doing stuff that they've never done before. And if you can't admit that, that's not a great way to set yourself up for success, right? And again, we're not taught to be intimate and vulnerable at work. I mean, unless you're like listening to a lot of Brene Brown, which I hope you are, but most people are not leaning into that aspect of things. And that is so necessary to cultivate trust so that you can actually relax and be
Yeah.
yourself at work and do your best work. So that's another huge component that I think is missing in a lot of companies, especially high growth. Like, I mean, I just,
Leaders, right? Because what we see is like managers, and I talk about it all the time, managers get promoted based on their individual results, and they have no idea how to build teams. Building trust is a teachable and learnable skill. Creating psychological safety, teachable, learnable skill. Taking care of your people, learnable skill, but that's not the training they get, right? So, and I think that's one big element that you're bringing in that is so key to teach our leaders and team leads how to create that environment where people can thrive and feel safe to, to just do their best work.
yeah, it's like, I wish everybody could go to coaching school. Seriously. Like I've been teaching high level leaders recently, coaching skills within companies, and it has been incredible. Like literally it's, it's kind of what was happening to me. Remember when we first went to school? And I remember when I first went back to school, in my late 20s, early 30s, I had a hunch that I wanted to, but I just remember being like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, why isn't everyone learning how to listen? Like, holy, So it's fascinating because we're not taught how to listen. We're taught, I'm actually coming up with my own course right now called Masterful Listening, specifically because I realize we're taught to write, we're taught to speak, we're taught to read. We're not taught to listen. The only time I learned how to listen was when I became a coach, and that has changed my life. So that is another thing we need to teach within organizations, how to better listen to each other, because we're not hearing each other. What people are saying and what's landing for people is very different, right? Yeah. And that creates a big problem.
Yeah.
So
and takes away from that innovation, right? Because if we're not listening, if you, especially as a leader, as a manager, not listening to your team and there are no contributions, nothing new is being born. It's like we're rehearsing the same shit over and over and over. Yeah. No, totally. Okay, let's talk a little bit about one other colleague of mine, called them brilliant jerks. Every company has brilliant jerks. Often they're either recruiters, they're in sales, they make you a ton of money, but they're freaking jerks that create toxicity. So in your experience, what have you seen where you left? Like, what was the culture that was like, yeah, toxic, unhealthy, when you're like, I just can't do it anymore. I don't care.
Right. Here's the best story of this. It was my first corporate job. I'm not going to say the company, but it was, if someone wants to do research, they can figure it out on LinkedIn. I always knew this was going to be an important moment in my life. And funny, all these years later, I look back at this, I'm like, man, I'm actually really grateful that this happened because it set me on my path. Like, if probably that needed to happen. I was working in sales and I was very good, like instant top performer. Within 4 months of, it was my first job out of college. I was 21 years old. I heard that there was a chance to open up and run a sales office in Australia for this company. And I was like, me. And I remember the VP of sales was like, who are you? And I was like, I'm Svetlana and I'm going to do it. Make it fair. So I did that. I opened up and ran a little satellite office when I was 21 by myself in Sydney, Australia. And I got home after being away for a month and doing this, and I was miserable. I was burnt out. I'd been working 12-hour days. Also, I was alone on the other side of the world, so I had no one with me. There was no appreciation or gratitude. The more work I did, the more work they wanted me to do. They tried to promote me. I was about to be the youngest director in the history of the company, and I was about to move to London to run Paris, Berlin, and London, which seemed like a dream, but they didn't want to compensate me more because I was so young. It was insane. It was like that was happening. Plus, one day I came in and everybody was standing. The chairs were gone. And I was like, wait, what's going on? So apparently we were launching a new technology. And as an inspiring idea, our VP said, if you don't sell a demo of this technology by tomorrow, I'm going to take away your chairs until you do it. And I came in and everybody's standing and they're pissed. And I'm looking around and I'm like, no way he did that. That's insane. And he didn't even come into the office. He had his the woman who worked for him, my boss, do it. Yeah. I had a deal on my desk to close. I think it was, honestly, it's been so long now. This has been 15 years. It was either $1 million deal or $100,000 deal. I don't remember anymore, but at the time, at 21, it was a huge deal. And I needed to close this deal and I didn't fucking have a chair, excuse me. So I moved my entire desk from my desk to the floor, closed the deal. And then I proceeded to write him an email that told him exactly how I felt about his absolute lack of
Humanity. Yeah.
And basically, he didn't like it. And of course, he didn't like it because people usually don't like to be called out for that type of thing. But that is, I quit that company because I knew that it was going to be this fear-based, competitive, not like work hard, I'll take away your damn chair. It was insane. That happened.
Yeah.
Like, but it was so amazing that it happened because I was like, wow, this is what I do not want.
Yeah.
And I was so grateful that I saw that and I walked away. And people told me I was crazy. Who walks away from that? Me. Yeah. And I would do it again.
Yeah, no, I had that experience of a fear-based environment. Like everything is fear and punishment, and what they don't realize, people actually can't perform because they're right. We know from neuroscience and your nervous system just shuts down. It's like we have two teenagers in the house, me and my wife, right? Punish, 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 fear, fear. At some point, they just shut down. They're like, what are you going to take away next? You already took away all of my electronics. I have no friends. Like at some point, like they just shut down. And
yeah, that's what I even told him. I said, hey, if you want to inspire people, I can give you some ideas. Let's work on this together, because what you're doing is actually creating a bunch of pissed off people who are not doing their work. So you're getting the opposite of the impact that you want. I think actually he might have had like a good intention. It's just you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. Everything I have learned is that positive psychology actually works better. Like both work. You can, some people are motivated by fear. Some people are motivated by stress. I've been there too. I just so much prefer to be motivated by inspiration, to be motivated by collaboration, to be motivated by a shared sense of purpose. Like that drives me so much better than when I'm afraid of like the ball dropping and my chair is going to be taken away from me. Like it's just a different perspective.
I would love for us to go in and work with some leaders at a director level and manager level and really help them like design an awesome culture. And I think the uniqueness, right, of our position now as a consulting and training company is that we get to like custom design it every time, depending on who the client is and what is their dominant identity in organization, right? Type of products, like who are the people that work there, and really consciously design. Because as you said, sometimes we have really good intentions, but without that knowledge and experience, you can really create a lot of damage. And people talk, especially now, people talk everywhere.
And no, and the other thing is, and this happened to me a lot at Delivering Happiness. So my job, I was kind of the head of business development. So I was talking about culture to tons of different companies all over the world. And they would constantly call me and say, hey, we want what Zappos did. We want Zappos culture. And I would have to explain to them, like, that's not going to work. It's like going to a couple and saying, hey, Anya, I love what you and Lily have. I want exactly that with my own partner. Like, no, I need to have my own amazing relationship with my own partner, maybe inspired by what I see here.
But what's possible, like it is possible what you can create, but like
absolutely, but it's unique. It's unique. Every company is unique. Because the people there are unique. Like you can't replicate everything, and you shouldn't want to replicate everything. Take some, I love learning from others, but I think of myself right now as a systems coach. Like systems and strategy is so important, but you can't just take others' systems. You need to make your own system, no matter how weird that system might be. Like the systems that work for me because I've made them for myself. And they're blends of a lot of different, I think, wisdom from a lot of different places. But that's what you're saying about like specifically getting unique and like focusing on each individual company. That's the way to
Even
do
the
it.
team, it's not even organization. It's like even each team will have its own, as I say, like like marketing will have its own subculture and sales will have its own subculture. Because if you see, so many of these departments are actually set up for competition. They're set up by business, right? To like compete with each other. There is no collaboration. And even then we can find ways of like, what is our common and like collective objective, right? And how do we want to be? And that's all we do. I love the motto of like, we bring humanity to organizations, and we can show that you can have a human, kind, beautiful culture and still make money. Like, it doesn't mean like, oh, now we're going to be all like hippie because I'm drinking, I want to show. So my wife bought me this bottle. So see, it's a thermos. It's like for loose tea. And it has a
Oh,
lotus flower and it's all organic. So now I have it with me. When we're done, I'm gonna drink it. So it's like, yeah, we are super hippie and like we know business. And as you said, like we create systems and it can be very, very effective.
oh yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's not a one or the other. It's literally like the reason I was so successful as a businesswoman is because of my artistry, is because of my intuition, is because of my creativity. Like it's the left brain and the right brain. It's everything coming together. It's, you can call it woo woo, but at the end of the day, it's more money. Happier people do better work. The better work that people do, the better at their jobs they are, the more businesses make money. So this is not literally about feeling good. It's actually about profit. Like
Yeah.
that's I think what I was obsessed with what Tony Hsieh did, and why he will always forever in my heart be such a mentor for me, because it showed, and there's so many other examples of this now,
Yeah.
that happier, more fulfilled human beings produce better work, are better innovators, are more creative. There's some companies like, for example, Tesla and Amazon. I've never worked for them personally. I've known people, coached people. I worked at Google and at Apple as a contractor, though. So I want to say that's another thing that's a very interesting thing. How companies treat different levels of employees is a huge culture problem. If you are at Google as an employee versus as a contractor, you have a very different experience. If you are at Apple or any of these organizations, it impacts you.
Yeah.
Well, again, there's so much to unpack here,
That
but a lot of companies
belonging,
that
yeah.
are brilliant are not always investing in the like emotional, intelligent side of things. Because I think in the old world paradigm, it was all about growth, money, power. Now I really do think we're in a consciousness revolution. People are waking up to
People
like
have choices. They're like, why would I do that if I can go and work for a company where I'm actually, as you said, they appreciate me, they are grateful, they see my talents. My manager has the capacity to match my unique skill set and my passions to their product. It's like, and if he can find that match and alignment for me, right, in my goal setting for the year, I will be so much more productive, because like that's something I'm really good at. So, and that's the new paradigm. Okay, so if companies stop wasting, to kind of bring it to a close, companies stopped wasting money on ping pong tables and free lunches, and I don't know what else they do. Where would you say, like, if someone is watching this video right now and they're like, I really need to change my culture, like people are living, like retention sucks, or we struggle attracting talent or hiring people, where would they start?
Yeah, I'd say they would start with having some very honest, real conversations in their one-on-ones with their team to actually see how people are doing. They would start by actually getting a sense, maybe doing like a very brief 1 to 2 question survey of like, how are you really feeling? What's working, what's not? Because again, we also don't know. We make assumptions all the time about what we think people feel, how they are. And now I actually think is a great time to do this. We're coming out of a freaking pandemic.
Yeah.
We've all been through a crazy intense time. So now it's like I feel like this is like a reawakening for business. A lot of people are unsure. Are they going back to the office? Are they not going back to the office? Like, it's a really good time to just check in and actually get a pulse on how are people? What do they need? And even that starts to create, again, some more intimacy, some more trust. This is a process. The other thing is, don't expect that it's going to just change overnight. I think the reason people do things like get the food and do the ping pong and all that, by the way, I'm not talking down at that. That's fun, but that's not enough. It's just not enough. That's not ultimately why people stay. People stay when they feel like their work has meaning and they're making a contribution. I've studied happiness for a long time with like world-renowned people I have in my life that are like researchers of stuff. You know, there's 3 levels of happiness, but the top one is higher purpose. It's when we are doing something beyond ourselves. And I think if we can help people do that at work, even on a little bit of a scale, it can tremendously change their lives. And it's possible. It actually is possible. It just takes an investment in time and effort and energy, but it's beautiful. And I hope a lot of people also learn through this process how to, again, hire and fire and quit what doesn't work for you, because you can't change one person. I have found cannot change an entire organizational culture. Sometimes
they're us.
Yeah.
Unless they're us, we can actually change the entire organization. That's what I find. It takes some knowledge. And I would also say that we do have, what I've seen work best is, yes, survey, yes, not making assumptions and working, but really training your people leaders on inclusive leadership skills, like training them so that they feel prepared to have difficult conversations, to give feedback, to develop their employees, to like have the skills to build those teams, because you can't just keep hiring, right, and doing offsite retreats. This is ongoing work. So I'm so happy, Svet, to chat with you. I want to do more of this. So if you guys have any questions, put them in the comments. We would be happy to jump back on a call. Where can people connect with you outside of Culture Crafters?
Yeah, they can connect with me on LinkedIn. They can connect with me through my website, Instagram, Facebook. I'm all over the internet. I make tons of content and videos, and I've been doing it for years. So yeah, I'm excited. I feel like we just barely scratched this.
Totally.
This is such a deep, like, this is literally, I feel like, of everything I've done, this culture piece has inspired me my whole career.
Because it really makes the difference. It
is. And again, culture really, 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 really matters. And it starts within. It really starts within, because when we're good, we can actually work anywhere. But the more an organization can do to help support everyone's growth and development, the more it's just going to set everyone up for success. So I'm all about that. Let's do more of that.
I love it. Let's do more of that. And I will put some links how you can reach out to us. As I said, we're women founded. We're the diverse group of consultants, coaches, trainers would be happy to come in and help you build an awesome, awesome culture. Peace.